Yeah. Okay. Good morning, everyone. You are welcome to the first lab session for the mobile computing course. Today is supposed to be a very introductory course, so we are going to go through how to install Android Studio, which is, just very quick. How to create a new project and then sharing it on GitHub. And I think that should be, or how to run the project on an emulator, and also how to run it onto a physical device. So, if you have not installed Android Studio, you can go to this link and then start to download it and install it. I believe most of you might have installed it already. Yes. How many of you have installed Android Studio already? Okay, so we still have quite a few people who have not installed. So, you can follow this link just by maybe searching it in Google search. Just put Android Studio and you go to the site. For example, if I click on it this way, it takes me there and I download it. But I have it installed already, so I don't need to download it and install afresh. So I have Android Studio installed, and now I want to create a new project, for example. So all I do is that I come to File and New. Then I see New Project in the first option. So you just click on it this way, and for example, I just click on. You can choose any of these project templates. These are easy to go, and they have some mockups already in there for you to get started. But mostly for starters, we just choose an activity. Then you click on Next. So at this point, you put in your project name. So, for example, maybe this is for Lab 1. So mobile form Lab 1. And then you put in a package name. A package name is, for example, it has two rules. For example, it's used to identify the application at the system level. Also, it helps you to organize the files in the structure. And when you want to publish the app to also Play Store, it has to be unique for each app. So for now, we can leave what we have here. And the project is going to save this location. So many times we create the project and later on we want to look at, okay, so where is the project? We cannot find where it's on our file system. So this is where the project files will be saved to. And then the language, the development language, you can choose between Java and Kotlin, but for this lab session, we're using Kotlin, so I'll maintain this the language here as Kotlin, and then minimum API level. So I guess when we go further this course, we will talk more about it. But in brief, yes. So if you need any extension, we also brought two extensions. You can pick them and try to use it. So the minimum API level actually dictates which type of Android operating system your application can run. So depending on which API level you choose, your app can run on certain apps. So for example, if I choose a very low API level, for example 4.0, I see that it says that my app can run approximately 100% of devices. So this is for API level 14 is for Android 4.0. So maybe I can, if I want it for a high level Android, I can choose 7 nuggets. So it depends on, but you can change this configuration later when you advance your project and you want to build app for different different types of Android systems. So it doesn't really matter at this stage. So for example, let me choose 24 for the start. Then I can now click on finish and it will create the project. Hello? I chose 24, but I mean you can change it later, but for starters you can choose maybe 24, which will run on Android 7. Okay. So now I have Android Studio and I have my project open for me. Now let's take a quick tour into the project structure and what do you see here and what it means. For example, if you see Java, when you expand that folder, you have three folders, subfolders, and your package name shows here. So where is the files? Where is the Java files? Where are the Kotlin files? So for example, when you expand the package, for example, fi.olu.ibcom.mobicomp lab1 is my package name. So when I expand it, I can see main activity.java. So later on, you might be coding all the functionalities in this what do you call it, this Kotlin file. So again, there's also development of the interface, the UI design. So where do I find those files to modify and design my user interface? So you come to in the same structure, you see resources here, and under resources there are layouts, and under layouts you see activity main.xml. So this is the XML file that you edit to add user interface components to the application that you are designing. So this XML file is for the main activity. Later on, you can add, as we advance, you can add as many activities as you want. And there are two ways to modify this XML. You can do it in the test view. So if I click on this test, I can modify the XML here. But it's way easier to do it from the design view, where you can simply drag and drop the components onto the interface. So for example, I need to maybe put a button. I have maybe a login screen where I have a button that says login. So I can simply come to this button, drag and drop it onto the interface, right? So I can put the button in. Okay, let me make this thing bigger. I think it's too small now. Okay, so I guess everybody can see now. So I can come to this, we call it the control palette. So there are buttons here, there are tests, and even the tests, we have special tests for plain text, for password, for email. So you can use any of them depending on how you want to design it. So for example, I want to just put a plain text box here, so I can just drag and drop it here. And there are further actions that you need to do, for example, how to arrange the user interface components on the design interface. But we will get to that aspect as we progress into the course. So basically, today is a hello world. Just now, if I want to change the text on this button, you see that there's a default text here that says that button. So if I want to change the text on this button, I can go to attributes of the text. So I select the button here, and then I can look for text here. So maybe the text is maybe wants to go to Facebook. So I can change I can change the text that appears automatically here inside this design. Likewise, I could have, assuming I'm editing the code or I'm editing the interface on the XML, I can change the same text here. Maybe I want to put to show login now, so I can change it here, and when I come back to the interface, the change that I made in the text is also shown here. So basically, that's very easy. You can drag and drop it, drag and drop components and arrange it, and you have your UI ready. So how do I see it now? Okay, this is just a design. I want to see my app running or live in action. So there are two ways that you can do it. One is to run it on an emulator. Emulator is simply a virtual device, so it's just the same operating system that your Android device is running, but now it's actually a virtual device that can run on your PC. So, and then the second option is to run the app straight on your device. So now I want to run the app on my device, on the emulator, so that I can see how the interface looks like really in action. So now initially you need to create what we call a virtual device. So you can go to Tools, and then you come to AVD Manager. So I have created some virtual devices already, but for example, if you come to these tools, AVD Manager, this list might be empty. So you come to create virtual device, and we are running it on the phone. For example, I want to run it on Google Pixel Excel. So once I select it, I can go to Next, right? And it asks me to download which Android version I'm going to run on that virtual device. So if I want to run Android Q, I can click on this download, and then it will download the operating system. So this might take a while. As you can see, I think 1 gig also. So it goes through this step, download the operating system image, and also other required components that you need. But I'm not going to want you to this download, so maybe I'll cancel it for now. But I guess you get how to go to. So this is something that you do once. So once you create it, you have that virtual device, you can always test your applications on that Android virtual device. So let me cancel it. But when it goes to the download, you just click on finish, and that should be all. So I have virtual devices created already, so I can select any of these, and they will be available for me here. Do we have any questions at this point? How many of us are following? Okay. And how many of us have been able to come? How many of us have been able to follow me to this step? Okay. So what's the rest of us doing? Are we? Yes, you have a question? All right. So, for example, I have this interface designed. Now I want to run it on an emulator. So I select this emulator I want to run it on Pixel 2, which is an API 28, for example. Once I select it, then I click on this Run App. So Run would now start the emulator. It will take a while to initialize. So normally what I do is that when I run this emulator once, I don't I don't close it if I'm using the emulator to do my development. So it takes time to initialize and boot and everything. But once it's opened and you are now running the next apps onto that emulator, is quite a bit faster. So okay, so whilst we wait for our emulator to get started, we want to look at how to share this code on GitHub. So why do I need GitHub at all? So GitHub is a cloud-based code repository where you can, share your code. You can also do code versioning. So just like we do with Git on our local system. So for example, if you have Git on your local system, you might not be able to collaborate with external parties. So the best way to share the code and collaborate is to share it on, maybe if you have a cloud version control system in your intranet or on your servers, or the best way is to maybe go to GitHub. In GitHub, you can create private repositories or public one, which everybody can browse. So the first step is to go to GitHub. I have an account already. So, but assuming I'm not signed in, you can go to GitHub and create an account. So it's a free account. You don't pay for it, and you have a free cloud code versioning. So the advantages it offers are plenty. For example, if you are developing and you want to test a certain functionality which you are not sure yet, you can create a branch, modify the code, test it, everything. If it's working, you can now merge it into the main work. Or what I used to do, I remember when I was in my high school days, so we are working on the same project. When I was in bachelor's, we are working on the same project, and my friend is editing that same file on a different computer. I'm also editing a portion of that same file on a different computer. So when we finish and we are supposed to put it together, issues arise, and you might spend almost forever trying to fix the code and merge it. But if you have, if you are using Git and you are putting your code on GitHub, it's quite easy for you to both collaborate on similar aspects of the project and merge it together. So let me sign in. This is taking quite a long time. Yeah, it's not booting. Hold on. Oh. Okay, so as you can see now, the app that we have developed is running on the emulator now. You might have many questions as to why, the interface has been messed up, but I guess this is a question of constraints and the layout that I was talking about. So we can go into much details of this layout later on as we progress. But for now, let me just do a simple trying to position the interface. I run again. Yeah. Where's my emulator? Yeah, it's here. Okay, so I just did a quick repositioning of the button, and I can now see it here. So you can actually go on and on, make the change, run it quickly, and then the changes are effected here for you to see. Now I want to share this project on GitHub, which we are going to use for this course. So because we want to monitor the coding, and also in GitHub we can look at comments live in the code if we see that maybe there are some issues in the code that we want to check for you. We can comment in the code. and we can see the development progress. You can also see the changes that you have been doing inside a file. You can report issues in there for it to be fixed, etc., etc. Now I want to share this project on GitHub. So what I do is that I go to VCS. So on Android Studio, you see this VCS menu. It's for version control systems. And once you click on VCS, you can see import into version control, and you see share project on GitHub. So once you click on it, okay, it says this project is, okay. Hold on, please. I have this project already on GitHub, but okay, this is the one that I was using. So okay, let me put this one aside. Yeah, this is the one that we are doing. Okay, so I go to VCS, I go to import into version control, share project on GitHub. So this is, it asks you for the repository name, but I think if you have not connected your Android Studio to GitHub already, initially to ask you for your GitHub account details, which you need to provide. So you just specify the name of the repository and then you click on share. And this will share the project on GitHub for you. Now you come to GitHub, for example, this is the project. And you see your files here. For example, you can have pushed the initial code here. So I can browse the files system of my code at this point. So I can see only the changes around at that point. I can open the files, check in there, the code. No, not this one, sorry. Shall see, man. Yeah. For example, I want to copy this code and share at a certain point to my friend, so I can just click here and then copy this line of code and share. You can edit the code live here. There are a lot of things that you can do with GitHub. So
what's the course? Programming?
Mobile computing?
Oh, okay.
Yes.
No, it's his course. He's like making a copy right now.
Right.
Well, it's his
So
lecture
you
now.
go to VCS version control
Yesterday was me.
and import into GitHub. Share project on GitHub. Yes. Yes, so like I said, for example, you have to have an account on GitHub. And once you have an account on GitHub, you can provide that account details there. Because I have already connected my Visual Android Studio with GitHub already, that's why it's not asking me for that. Yes. Now, assuming I make some changes. For example, I see this. So assuming I make some changes, I'm able to maybe drag and drop, change the buttons, and I have a very nice interface. And I probably want to now save it or save the changes onto GitHub, because everything that I'm doing, I'm editing, and all the changes that I'm making are local on my machine. It's not on GitHub yet. So for example, I want to now save the changes on GitHub. I come to version control, which is down here. So all the changes that I've made, it will list all the files that I've changed since the last time I committed the code to GitHub. So I can now click here, commit. So here it actually shows me which portions of the code. As you see, it makes it shows a comparison of which portion of the code that I've modified or which portions of the file that I have changed since the last commit, right? And once I have this, I can add comment. So commit message. So what are the changes? So maybe you want to list what specifically you did in the changes. So maybe I added a button so I can change the commit message here. Added a new button, for example. Now, once I have that, I can now click on commit. Name. Okay. So when I commit the code, I come to GitHub. Yes. But for those of you who loves to use the terminal, so you can use the terminal also in Android Studio. So assuming I want to, if you know about Git and how to use the Git commands, you can run the Git commands here in this terminal. I guess I made the code private. That's why it's Did I forget about my own password? Oh, there's it. Okay, I see. I'm typing my. Oh, there's a character. I don't know why the keyboard. There's a character behind it. Okay. So have you been able to follow up to this point? Come again? Okay. So let me make changes again. For example, you can see it on GitHub. Okay. Hold on, please. CS GitHub. Push. Do you need to do this push? Okay. I think there's a step that we missed. So with this Git system, so there are some steps that you need to follow. For example, when you have made changes, you add the changes to your local repository. So you have a local repository and you have an online repository. If you add the changes to your local repository and you commit, it first saves locally onto your system, your local system. But if you want it to go online, merge with the original base or the origin of the code base, you can have to go to VCS. Then you come to Git, right? And then push. So push is actually getting all the changes that you have made and the change that you have committed and pushing it onto the online repository. And for example, if you are working with a partner or you are working with a project group member and the person has made some changes and maybe they have designed some new interfaces and you want to get that changes onto your machine or your local system to be able to see the changes, you have to come to pool, right? So straight away you go to VCS Git pool, and pool will go to the online repository and bring you all the changes that you have made. So let me go to push. So push is, I want to push the code or the changes that I've committed to the online repository. So I come to this. And as you can see, my last changes that is added a new button is here. Then I click on push and I see pushing here. Okay, so push successful. So once push is successful, I come to GitHub and the last changes that I did is seen here, added new button. Now, as you can see, it shows me which portions of the code that I changed. And so it's easy for you to track your errors if you make any errors and you want to backtrack. Normally, you have some wild ideas, excellent ideas, and you, after saving the code, committing, you make all these changes, but unfortunately, it doesn't run. And maybe you have to meet the TA to show your working app, and your recent changes has broken your code. So all you can do is that you can reverse back to the previous working version, and then you can present it nicely. So that's about saving it to GitHub. So any questions at this point? Okay. Now I want to, for example, okay, so we've almost exhausted. Okay, share on GitHub, we've done, okay. Now I want to try to, okay, now I've tested the app on the emulator. It's working fine. And I want to see it live running on a device, an Android device. So this is not maybe a compulsory rule, but from my experience, it's the earlier you run the app on a physical device, the better. Because the emulator is kind of the ideal heaven situation of the whole system, and everything might be working nicely there. You are telling your colleagues, oh, I've designed the interface, everything is working, my code is, but they pick the code and they run it on the device and something breaks. So normally it's best to run it as early as possible on a physical device, and you can maybe see. Can you check whether there's audio on the Zoom?
You need to share.
No, is there audio on the Zoom? Because I think Denzel is sending a message that there's no audio. Okay, so it's working. All right. That's good. So how do I then get the the app to run on my device? So I need my phone, and I need a USB cable to connect my phone to my computer. Okay, so my phone is connected to my computer now. There are two things that you need to do. You need to enable developer options on this phone for you to be able to run your code on it. Since the code has not been maybe deployed on Play Store, or so if you are running it from your Android Studio to the device, you need to get your developer options turned on. So how do I do that? I go to my phone settings, and in settings, I look for about phone. And in the about you can see build number of the Android build version. So you have to click on this build number multiple times. So as you click on it, it will tell you that, okay, developer option is enabled. So I have done it already, but you can try on your phone. Click on the build. I'm using OnePlus 6. So the interface might be different, but it's still in settings about. So now once you have turned on this developer mode, you have to come back to the settings, developer options. So I can find it under system developer options, or you can search it in there, because now Android is quite smart. You don't need to go through a long list to find some. And once you have this developer option here, you have to turn it on. Usually it's off. You turn it on, and then you come down here and look for USB debugging, and you turn that one to on. So there are 3 steps. One, you go to the about, and then you click on the build number multiple times to turn the developer mode on. Then once you have done that, you come to developer options in the settings again. Then you turn the developer option on. Once that is on, finally you go down to USB debugging, and then turn USB debugging on. So once you have done this, you are set. Now I've done the configuration to enable me to run the app on my phone. So now I want to actually run the app on my phone. So what I do is that I come to my project. Now, as you can see, initially I had only the virtual devices listed here on the available devices. But now my phone is listed here, and I can see OnePlus and the phone models. And so you can just select it this way. So now I want to run it onto this phone. And once I do that, I click on run. It starts to build the project. And it's now installing on my phone. And I have the app running on the phone now. So this is just a dummy app. So assuming I provide username and password, I click on login, and I log in, and everything is working perfectly, and I'm a happy guy. So have you been able to follow to this end? Yes.
Didn't you ask, have you been able?
Yeah, I asked you, yes.
Yeah, I just, it's like, I've been able.
Oh, okay. So that's good. I thought you wanted to ask a question. Okay. So who has not been able to follow up to this end? Why is that? Do you have any? Okay, you don't have. Yes. So please try to bring your laptop to the class. I don't know whether they're borrowing the vendor machine because they have logged it with some administrator password and you cannot install apps on. But maybe you can try to contact the vendor machine people. I don't know how, and maybe they can install it for you. I don't know. But the best way is to maybe get a laptop and install. Do we have any questions? Okay. So I guess we are at the end of today's lab. Almost over. So maybe we will just take some time to come around and probably see whether you are having any difficulties.
As a note, yesterday, the course is divided into two parts. In Pillar 3, which is approximately January and February, we have